Welcome back then, and in this video we're going to look at calculating the average speed. Before we do that though, I want you to do this starter which focuses on your times tables, which is so important, as you know. So pause the video and have a go at these questions, and when you're ready, press play to check over your solutions. Okay, welcome back then. Just a quick check on these then, mark them, make any corrections. So today's lesson, as I said, was going to focus on average speed. So you might have heard of that before. You might have been traveling in the car, and on the speedometer it says that you might be traveling at, say, for example, 30 miles per hour or 70 miles per hour. You could see an athlete maybe jogging at, say, 7 meters per second. They're the sort of examples of average speed. So this is a really important triangle to try and learn over time. It's the speed, distance, time triangle. So D for distance, S for average speed, and T for time taken of a journey. And if I want to find the average speed of a journey, then I use the D and the T. So it's D over T, so distance over time. So to work out average speed, we divide the distance that's been traveled by the time it's taken to do the journey. So here's an example then. We have a train that travels at, that's traveled 210 miles, and it took 3 hours to do the journey. We're being asked, what was the average speed? Now, the reason why average is in there is because at some points of the journey, the train might be traveling quite slowly. It might be stopped at some occasions at a station, or it might even be traveling at quite a high speed as well at parts of the journey, which is why we say it's an average speed. So just a reminder there, speed is distance over time. So in short, the average speed is the distance divided by the time. In this case, the distance is 210 miles. So we write down that the distance is 210 miles. And we divide it by the time, which in this case, it took 3 hours for the train to do its journey. So we ignore the units part of this, the miles and the hours, and we focus on dividing 210 by 3. Now 210 divided by 3 gives me 70. And the correct units is miles per hour, so mph. Okay, so we use that for miles per hour. The average speed of the train was 70 miles per hour. Okay, a different type of example then. It says that Alex jogs 48 meters in 8 seconds. So we're being asked to calculate Alex's average speed. So speed is distance over time. So we get used to writing this down, and it's going to help us. So in this case, it's distance. Well, he did 48 meters, and it took him 8 seconds. Again, we ignore the units and perform the calculation. So 48 divided by 8 gives us 6. And the units are meters per second, but we use this slanted line for the per and s for seconds. So in most cases, we use average speed with this slanted line to separate the units. And for miles per hour, we use the P for miles per hour. Okay. Example 3 then, and this is going to test some of your numeracy skills. So Emma cycled 45 kilometers in 2 hours and 30 minutes. What was Emma's average speed? So we know that now speed here is distance over time. And we know that the distance she cycled is 45 kilometers. What about the time? This time comes in hours and minutes, and we only want our time to be in 1 unit. So think of a way that you could say 2 hours and 30 minutes. You might say that 2 hours and 30 minutes is the same as 2.5 hours, or 2.5 hours. Okay. So we're going to use that as part of our calculation. We're going to divide 45 by 2.5. And that's not an easy calculation without a calculator. So think of strategies that we've used in the past for dividing by a decimal, or refer to a calculator if you're struggling. So let's have a think of the numeracy strategies then first. So we don't want to divide by a decimal. So there's two ways that we can do that on this question. We can multiply 2.5 by 10, and we can multiply 45 by 10, which means that we could work out for the average speed 450 divided by 25. It's the equivalent of 45 divided by 2.5. Or another alternative that might make it a little bit easier. How else can we get 2.5 to a whole number? Well, if we double it, it gives us 5. So we could also double both numbers on the fraction. So we could work out the average speed is doubling 45 is 90, 45 times 2, and double 2.5 is 5. If we perform both of those calculations, 90 divided by 5 is 18. And if we do 450 divided by 25, it's also 18. So either way would help you work that problem out much simpler. And now we focus on the unit. So we've got kilometers for the distance. So it's 40 kilometers, and then it's per hour. So the average speed Emma cycled was 18 kilometers per hour. Okay, I've attached in your assignment an average speed worksheet. Please have a go at that to demonstrate your understanding of what we've discussed in this video so far. And when you're done, have a go at this check-in question. So what I would like you to do, there's quite a lot of information here on the check-in question. I'd like you to pause the video and have a go at the question. And when you're ready, press play for me to go through it for you. Okay, welcome back then. So in this check-in question then, the information gives us Mr. Rees drives from Swansea to Bristol. He leaves at 8:30 and he arrives in Bristol at 9:45. The journey from Swansea to Bristol was 80 miles. We're being asked to calculate the average speed of Mr. Rees's journey, given the correct units of our answer. So average speed then, so just a quick reminder that in this video, we've had this triangle, so average speed is distance divided by time. So what do we know? Well, we know the distance was 80 miles, it tells us here. So we can write that in ready. But the time, it's not given in the question, but we have to work it out. So it's from 8:30. So his journey started at 8:30, and he arrived in Bristol at 9:45. So how long did the journey take? Well, if we add 1 hour onto 8:30, that gets us to 9:30. So from 9:30 to 9:45 is another 15 minutes. So the journey took 1 hour and 15 minutes. Now we've got to be really careful with that. Okay, so have a think. 15 minutes. How else you would say 15 minutes? Hopefully you would say that, well, that's 1/4 of an hour. So it takes 1¼ hours for Mr. Rees to do his journey, and 1/4 is the same as 0.25. So we can change it into a decimal. That's 1.25 hours. Okay, we're gonna have a look at the numeracy strategies involved with this one, and also you could use a calculator as well for this type of problem. So we want to try and change this 1.25 to a whole number. So there's different ways again of doing that. Multiply it by 100, or a much shorter version would be to multiply it by 4. 4 lots of 1.25 gets us to 5, and we can multiply this by 4 as well. So giving us 320 miles, 80 times 4, and multiplying 1.25 by 4 gives us 5. So that's the equivalent of this. And it's far easier to work out 320 divided by 5, either with the bus stop methods, or to divide by 5, you can use the numeracy strategy, divide by 10 and times the answer by 2. So if I divide 320 by 10, it's 32. 32 times 2 is 64. So I know that for this journey, it's to reach travel at 64 miles per hour. Thank you for listening to the video, and stay safe.